Good afternoon. Good nachmittag. My name is Aric Austin. No fear of the unknown. So that's what I'm going to talk about. A lighthearted but honest take on building a business in a foreign land. So I'm American. I grew up in Germany. And here in Vietnam, built up something, a new business, and I'll take you through all of that. So let's get going. I'm Aric Austin. Who am I? I'm an American guy running self-storage in Vietnam. I think most of you are probably familiar with self-storage. It's everywhere in the USA, Australia. It's becoming more popular in Europe, and it's really just beginning here in Asia. And I have to say, I'm just as surprised as anyone to be here. If someone had said 10 years ago, you're going to be doing this, I'd be like, you're crazy. I moved here from Berlin, you can see there on the left, in 2018. I was looking for new challenges, right? After 20 years in one sector, I wanted something completely different. And I also said to myself, let's do it somewhere else, right? So a new sector and a new country. What could possibly go wrong, right? Background check, I was born in Spain. I was very small. We moved to Germany, I grew up in Munich. I did an MBA from the Rotterdam School of Management in the Netherlands. My background, the 20 years I talked about, that was media and advertising. A long time ago, I actually worked for MTV Europe in London. That was a very cool sector to be in. And then I moved on to online advertising, and I had 2 successful startups in Germany. One out of Munich and one out of Berlin. What are you going to get from this session, or what I hope you get from this session? Honest insights on startup life in Vietnam, right? Discovering the roller coaster ride of building a business, the ups and downs, the unexpected twists and turns. And then also some of the key themes, right? Resilience and adaptation, thriving in an unfamiliar business environment. Of course, doing something here is completely new. And then innovation and execution, right? Bringing a new concept to an emerging market. So those are hopefully some of the insights you'll get from our session today. Why Vietnam? Was it a dart on a map? Yeah. So the initial reason for moving to Asia, going before this, is my brother's lived here for 25 years. He's the NGO type, working with animals, nature, and all that. I visited him a bunch of times, and I was just like, wow, it's dynamic here. I mean, you guys are here. I don't have to convince you, right? But it's just so different, the vibe and so on. So I said, Southeast Asia is where I want to go, but let's check out Southeast Asia a little bit more deeply. And now it's why Vietnam. You're probably going to hear a lot of this over these days here at these sessions, people talking about why Vietnam and so on. But from a personal reason, this is why I chose Vietnam here in Southeast Asia. One of the fastest growing economies, right? I think you'll hear that a bunch of times. I saw one forecast the other day. The next 20 years, Vietnam is globally forecast to be the fastest growing country in the world the next 20 years. Young, ambitious population. It's crazy how young they are here, right? Really young. Over 70% of the people are under 35. That's very different from Germany and a lot of Western countries. Entrepreneurial, digital first, fast-moving environment. You know, digital first, skip right past owning a laptop. Skip right past having a landline at home. I heard Esther just now speaking downstairs. I thought it was sort of funny. She talked about in Japan, if you turn on the TV, you still have people watching the home shopping network. Here, no way. Skip TV, go right to scrolling. So these types of things, it's just digital first. It's moving past all of that type of stuff. A rising middle class. In just 5 years, the middle class is expected to double here. You can see all these apartment blocks around here when you travel around. You can imagine how many people there are in those. So it's just amazing how that's booming. A strategic location. So we're right at the heart of Southeast Asia's supply chain. Right in the middle of all the investments, tech, manufacturing, and also just geographically, right? 2 hours to Hong Kong, 2 hours to Singapore, an hour to Bangkok, 2 to Manila, and so on. So really right in the middle. And for startups, it's really favorable. Like versus Thailand, higher growth, lower costs, right? Makes it a little bit more dynamic. Versus Indonesia, it has a larger population in Indonesia, but there are islands all over the place, right? So the infrastructure, it's very challenging from that perspective. Singapore, great place, but high costs, it's very expensive, and it's a fairly small market. Yeah? So that's why I chose Vietnam, why I decided to come here. The world is taking note. So you're reading articles, you're reading things all over the place about Vietnam. This is one that sort of stood out to me. Economist a year ago, few countries are better placed than Vietnam to get rich. That's a pretty black and white statement, and it's a pretty powerful statement. That's one of the reasons I'm here. If you look at this chart, you look at the FDI over the last 12 years, as a percentage of GDP, every year almost, Vietnam's right at the top, right? People are coming here, they're investing, they're building, and so on. Excuse me. The thought process, so how did it all get started? I was moving here in 2018. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to do something different. And I knew there's opportunity here. Right? You come here, you can smell it, you can see it, you can feel it. I was moving back and forth from Berlin. I had some stuff here I needed to put away until I come back the next time. I talked to the Airbnb hostess. Where can I put these things for 6 weeks, 8 weeks? And she looked at me like, I have no clue. So that was sort of the beginning, right? Then I started researching self-storage. How established is it in neighboring countries like Thailand and Malaysia? Turns out, you go to any of those countries, Thailand, Malaysia, the Philippines, it's well established. Hong Kong, Singapore, more developed, more established, okay? So they were way ahead of us. So you could sort of start seeing a trend there. And then I really discovered that self-storage becomes inevitable. Once you reach certain macroeconomic indicators, GDP per capita, urbanization rates, and those types of things, it's inevitable. I call it the IKEA, Starbucks, McDonald's paradigm. Not a matter of if, but when those companies enter a market. That's generally true. Self-storage fits into that category, right? There's lots of skepticism. The Vietnamese are different. They all store stuff at home. It won't work in Vietnam, and so on and so on. Who needs extra space? That's crap, right? That's just not a sound argument. So I sort of turned it around. I said, self-storage works when an economy reaches a certain point. It works in all of these other places. Give me a good and solid reason. Yeah, that's a bit loud next door. So what I was, basically I said to people when they were skeptical, I said, look, it works in all these other markets when they reach certain economic levels of development. Give me a good fundamental reason why it won't work here if it works there. That's the challenge, and no one can give you a reason. It just doesn't make sense. And then that was sort of the aha moment. I said, okay, all of these factors, it's a need, my light bulb moment, I'll be first. It's going to come here, we might as well kick off the ball and get the ball rolling. So, why storage though? Why storage? It's surprisingly exciting. Now bear with me, okay? It's an unsexy industry. I completely agree with that. If you say self-storage, it's like ho-hum, okay? But Forbes, 4 months ago, end of October, had an article, Unsexy Businesses, Sexy Profits. What was number one? Boom, self-storage, right? So when you start digging more and more and more and look at the numbers of this business, it's really insane. Okay, I'll show you a bit more. It's very predictable growth, and there's really long-term wealth potential. It's not get rich quick overnight, but long-term it's amazing. So here's some numbers that are pretty amazing. Lock and store, it's a little bit small, apologies. So July 31, 2022, revenue 27 million pounds, EBITDA 16.35 million pounds. How many businesses have a 60% EBITDA? Not many. Multiples, that company sold for 378 million in cash. 14x revenue, 23 times EBITDA. That's the sexy part of the business, right? So when you get up to scale, you build these facilities, they get 1/3 full, you break even, the rest is gravy. It's all fixed costs. Cover that, that's it. So that's what made it extremely attractive. I said, okay, I want to get into this business, not just because it's the timing, but the numbers make sense. Yeah? The story of MyStorage. So that's who we are. We have two basic products. On the left, these are the lockers. That's our facility there. That's traditional self-storage. So if you say self-storage, that's what people think about. You rent a locker from 1 cubic meter, that's about what fits under a desk, to 23 cubic meters, that's probably about a sixth of this room, a fairly large room, and it's perfect for people who need frequent access to their stuff. You have a key, you can come and go when you want, you can do what you want. The other product we have is valet storage. That's the facility down on the left. We pick up and deliver. You sit at home, we come to you, we can pack, we can bring packing material, we'll put it into the facility, and then we deliver it back to you, all right? That's super convenient. You can sit at home, do nothing, book online, and we do it all. It's cheaper. The one disadvantage is the fact that you don't have access to the stuff all the time, right? So this is more convenient if you need access, B2B or whatever. This is if you're out of town, if you're renovating, if you don't, documents, right? You don't need access very frequently. The valet is better. So we have those two basic products, right, for our business. Humble beginnings, that's how we started out. It was a charmingly remodeled pharmacy that became our first location. And you can see we had 7 lockers. We even had Hamburg, Munich, the German city names as the locker names. And this was our valet space right here. So that's what the first facility, our proof of concept, looked like. So the first failure, before we found this place, we had another place a little bit further away. And I had a partner, he's a Western guy and his wife, and they were working with me, and I was relying on them to check contracts and go through all the details and make sure everything was in order. And then after we started construction, we'd put maybe $20,000, $25,000 into it. The landlord came along and said, hey, you were supposed to put everything in writing in terms of what you were going to change. We hadn't put it in writing. We had told her we were going to do a bunch of stuff, but the landlord was like, I'm going to get this guy. I'm going to ask for like triple my deposit, and so on and so on. So my mistake, you know, I didn't find the right person to check. I didn't do it diligently enough myself. We suggested to the landlord, hey, let's put that in escrow. I'll do it. She didn't want to do that. I said, well, I'll never see that deposit again. So I told my team, okay, just put the tools down, move out, just leave it. I'll lose the deposit. We lost about $25K that way. So that was one of those learnings. I'll talk a little bit more about what happened there, but you know, lots of little mistakes like that as you go and grow and so on. The COVID period, 2020 through 2022, it was a tough time here, right? We had dedicated staff members. They slept at the facility. We have showers at the facility, so it was probably one of the nicest places to stay here. Most of you are probably familiar with the fact in 2021 there was a hard lockdown here. 3 months you could not move or leave your apartment even. You know, the military went shopping for you. Luckily I was in Germany. But we had staff who were actually living at the facility and took care of things for us. We helped a lot of people though, right? We had a lot of people who were locked out of the country. Vietnam was closed for 2 years. You know, families were overseas. They literally could not come back unless you were a national or some sort of VIP status. So we went into apartments, and it was sort of like these scenarios from a zombie movie where everything had been left, you know, unplanned. We went in, we cleaned up, we packed their stuff away, we put it in boxes, put it into the valet storage, and then they saved them, you know, $2,000 a month rent by putting it into valet till they came back in 2022. So there are so many things like that going on. So it showed us that self-storage is really a very, very resilient, very strong business, whether the economy goes down or up. It just boringly, again, goes like that, right? A few percentage points a month. Boop, 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 boop. And lucky, right? We did the right thing. We chose storage. I had actually been thinking about a bagel shop when I was exploring all the different opportunities. Why bagels? Because Vietnam is a very bread-centric country. So I thought maybe it'll work here. But I'm glad I didn't go into F&B at the end of 2019. That would have been bad timing. So, creative expansions. How did we grow? We needed more space, particularly private lockers, okay? Valet has struggled in the West, but it's doing well here. And it's easy to expand, right? Valet, you saw the picture, you just get more warehouse space. We have a great Japanese partner. We need 500 more square meters. We put racks in, and then we sell that space. It's basically an arbitrage model. Why has valet worked here but not in the West? My theory, there's a huge company you may have heard of called Clutter in the United States. They got about 300 million from SoftBank, among others. They sold for a lot less. They didn't do well. Valet, I think, works here for 3 reasons. Number one, it's a very dense city. Everyone's on top of each other, very close. Number two, infrastructure is bad and people don't have cars, so you don't have a car to go and pick up your stuff and deliver your stuff. And number three, the labor is so cheap, right? So those 3 things combine to make valet easily scalable, make it grow more quickly. But the private lockers, you have to obviously build the building with the lockers, right? Buying property, the question about property, it's a no-go really, right? Buying property is too expensive, the market is opaque, lead times are too long, it's too difficult for foreigners. That is really, in my estimation, the reason none of the big players has come here yet. StoreHub and Extra Space are 2 of the big names in this space. They will 100% come eventually. You can't get around Vietnam. And so that's where we want to be when they come, right? But that is what has kept them back. They're more conservative, they're the property people, right? We got really lucky and found a partner called Tantan. They not only owned property in a prime location, but also had expertise with containers. And that was one of these light bulb moments. We said, hey, let's do this with containers. Let's build our facility out of containers. There's a picture of it right there. Some amazing advantages when you use containers. We own the building. Yeah, we own the building. Pick it up, move it. You can't do that with any other building or many other buildings. So we can move our facility if we need to. You hear lots of stories here about horrors with landlords and things like that. Well, okay, if you've got a problem with me, I'll move somewhere else, right? Higher valuations versus a regular leasehold, right? If you have a lease and it's a 5-year lease, that's how they value you. But if I say, okay, I've got a 5-year lease here, but if I have to move, then I'll move it over there and my lease just keeps going, the valuations look better, right? You're more flexible. I can build half. So this facility here, we built it in 3 stages. Build once and then we expanded twice as we filled up. Excuse me, a lot easier to do that. So that's one way we've expanded. That's our flagship facility, I should say. And then we started something called hyperlocal. Hyperlocal is basically taking storage to the customer. Okay, there's a model in the States called STUF with 1 F, S-T-U-F. You go to building owners or property managers and say, show me a space in your building that's unmonetized. A storage room downstairs, a corner of the garage, something you just can't rent, you can't make money on it, it's dead space. Let me have it. I'll put lockers in, my CapEx, I'll do the operations, I'll manage it, and we'll do a revenue share. So it's 0 risk for them. It's only upside. They offer an amenity to the people in the building. We bring people in from the outside to rent the space, and then they have a win because they're monetizing something, and we expand our inventory and we get more locations around the city. So that's what we're calling the hyper-local model, because we're making it very local for the customer. So I've got a couple of videos here. One is of the containers and one is hyper-local, so you can get a better feeling for what they look like. So first, our container solution here. Let me tell you what's really special about MyStorage and our facility. What we decided to do is use containers. That gives us the ultimate flexibility. It's a modular system, and as the demand grows, we can keep building very quickly. So if you'll take a look here, you'll see in the light blue, there are 2 containers, 1, 2, and they've basically been welded together. So right along here, you can see how 2 containers have been connected. So inside, you've got one massive room, and we've subdivided that into a bunch of different units. So let me take you inside, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like. Okay, so here we are inside the containers, and you can see exactly what it looks like. So one corridor right down the middle, and then around the corridor, you've got all the different storage units. Starting with the smallest units, right here, you've got a 1 cubic meter unit. On top of that, 2 cubic meters. And as you go around, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. All the way in the back here, you have a medium size, and then it wraps around, and you move towards the front, and they get a lot bigger. They could hold an entire apartment and that type of thing. So let me show you what the inside of one of these lockers looks like. This is actually a 14 cubic meter unit. It's quite big, and you could fit pretty much a small apartment in here. So here we are inside of a storage unit, and you'd never know you're in a container. And it's super clean. We want our customers to feel great about storing with us. If you look over here, you can actually see the original container wall. That is where we cut the doors, so we wanted to be more efficient with the use of the containers. And if you look up, you can see the ventilation, like in any other storage facility, keeps the air flowing, everything nice and fresh. Anyway, so that's what we did with the containers, right? So when you say container, when people hear container, they think of big old dirty containers. You go in, it's not very nice. But we wanted to make that super clean. You go inside, you feel like it's quality and that type of thing, right? So very, very important focus on that experience. Now I'm going to show you what the, please, yeah, go for it.
The containers because you
welded them?
Exactly. So how easy you can move them? You can't because you have to.
They have to be cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have to be cut. That's a very good point, and that's part of our learning. So let me talk about that for a second. Tantan is the property owner, and they built the containers for us. Yeah. That was the first build that we did. And then we talked about, okay, we want to make it as mobile or as movable as possible. So the second build they do, they're going to bolt things together rather than welding, because it'll be a lot easier to pick them up and move them and things like that. So those are some of the learnings we're going through, right? Another one, a great example of that is when we built the first, when we expanded to the second level, we built the same types of units upstairs and downstairs. The second expansion, small units upstairs, big units downstairs, right? So you sort of think through these things as you grow and as you get bigger, right? Exactly. So the next one is the, whatchamacallit, hyperlocal. That's an apartment building, you might even know it, called the Nasim. I know one of the people on the building owners committee. They have a storage space downstairs. It was just a bunch of junk, right? Not rented, not used for anything. And Jonah said, hey, Aric, let's talk about maybe we can turn that into storage space. So I'll show it to you here. I'm going to cut it short because it goes on a little bit long in terms of showing you what it looks like. But just to give you an idea of this. I will put them in and you can make more money. So trying to turn it a little bit around, instead of trying to sell them, trying to convince them, being a little bit FOMO-ish in terms of the pitch. Where are we today? So our self-storage, we've expanded our flagship location twice. We're now 90% sold out. So I think that kills the argument of it's not going to work here. We're actively working on new hyperlocal deals, but the demand is higher than the inventory on lockers right now. Good problem to have. Our valet, we've got a 2,000 square meter facility. It's further out of town. It's about 85% sold out. We'll be expanding that very soon. We just opened, I posted it on LinkedIn yesterday, so if you go to my profile, you'll see it. First of its kind in Vietnam, the first wine storage facility in the country. Just opened yesterday. So temperature controlled, it's cold in there. It's about 12 degrees centigrade. Humidity controlled, all that good stuff. And we are currently fundraising. We're in discussions with investors to expand across Vietnam and then the Mekong region. So that's where we are right now. All right, would I choose this business again today? Of course there are doubts, right? I frequently thought, it's not the right choice. It's not tech where I don't have to build anything. It's the physical assets, right? They're more complicated. You need more capital to grow, for sure. Definitely need more capital. A visible and physical business exposes you more to people who might not have your best interests in mind. You know, government authorities, the competition, whoever. You've got this big presence, right? And it's not as cool as tech. Not quite as cool. The good stuff, AI resistant, right? We are very tech forward, and I can talk about some of those things. We really leverage tech. We've got a really cool tool using AI that I'll talk about in a second. But our core function, storing things, it's going to be a long time before AI can substitute for that, right? So that's a really good feeling. It's a proven business model, right? Globally proven, extremely wide customer base, not exposed to one sector. You know, our use cases are so broad. You know, every reason under the sun. I've always said at some point in everyone's life you need storage, right? And for all kinds of reasons. Very predictable growth, and we're really well positioned for what's happening in Vietnam right now. Perfect timing. My thoughts, I'm actually quite happy with my choice. It's not a 100x in 5 years business, but I like this quote I read the other day. Demand is still growing faster than supply. This is an industry that won't get you rich quick, but will get you very wealthy in the long term. So that's what self-storage is, right? It's not an overnight thing. Speaking of overnight, some of you may know this quote. I think it's a fabulous one by our friend, Mr. Bezos. It takes 10 years to build an overnight success, right? And that's self-storage.
I just really quickly, because this is a really good quote, but Apple, when they IPO'd, they were also called overnight success. And Steve Jobs' quote, which may have actually influenced this one, was, it's amazing how long it takes to become an overnight success.
Yes, that's right, exactly. People don't sort of forget, right, how long it took or whatever. Oh my gosh, here they are all of a sudden. Now I've been doing this for the last 10 years, right? Now I'm here. So that's what it is. My top 5 challenges. Managing and communicating as the weird foreign boss. Opening up and changing your cultural lens. Navigating bureaucracy and regulations in a foreign country, advertising a relatively unknown service in an emerging market, and bringing Western standards into the business to elevate service levels. So, you know, I thought long and hard, well, what were the things that I encountered? What were sort of some of the biggest surprises, the toughest things? I'd like to talk about these for a moment. So, managing and communication. We talked a little bit about the managing side of things, as opposed to the West now, right? Hierarchy is very, 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 very important. It's a very, very hierarchical society. Very focused on if the boss or the teacher or whatever tells you to do it, you do it. You don't question it. So titles and prestige are important. Employees won't always tell you when something's wrong. That's one of my biggest challenges for sure, is getting people to give me critical feedback. Say, hey, Aric, you're wrong, don't do that, right? That is challenging. Feedback must be given with care. Don't criticize in front of others' face, right? That type of thing. Much, much more sensitive here than back in the West. Relationships are more important than contracts, right? Contracts matter, of course, but the relationship is really the foundation. The contract isn't the foundation. And you'll always be seen as the crazy foreign boss, right? I actually tried to leverage the fact that I'm the foreigner, right? And I said, okay, let's do a crazy advertising campaign. I got myself a MyStorage traditional outfit made, and we did some fun ad spots and all that. It didn't take off, right? I thought maybe it'd get some traction. It didn't, but trying to do fun things, and even then going in that direction, saying, I know I'm the foreign boss. I'm never going to be able to not be that. So let's play with that and leverage it and try to do things with it, right? So embrace it. On the communication side, I've just got some memorable moments I'd like to share. The birthday cake sign. This talks about how communication and clarity of communication is incredibly important. I had a birthday cake made for a staff member. I wrote them, I said, please put a birthday cake sign, put a happy birthday sign on the cake. I'll show you a picture, what they wrote. The cake slid a little bit, so the writing is a little bit smeared, but you will get the gist. So this is what came. Happy birthday, sign. They thought that's the name of a person, right? So that's what happens if you say, put happy birthday sign on the cake. Yeah? You'd never think about that, ever, until you get it. Something very similar. I asked for showers to be installed in our facility, right? I like to go running and all that. Some clients can shower up before they go to a meeting. Please put a shower in. Okay, great. Go in, get ready to take a shower. I didn't tell them to put a hot shower in. Same thing, right? You wouldn't think about that in the West. You don't say, put a shower with hot water in. Put a shower in, you think you're going to get hot water. Here you have to say, put a shower in that has hot water. Yeah, so those are just the little things that you just are always reminded of in terms of communication. You take it for granted, you don't think about it, and they pop up. Changing your cultural lens. Now, cultural differences are expected, right? That's no big deal. We know that. That's not what I'm talking about here, right? If I go from Germany to Holland, there's a cultural difference. If I go from Germany to Portugal, it's a bigger difference. If I go from Germany to here, it's even bigger difference. So we know the differences exist, right? What I'm talking about is getting past these differences and trying to put yourself into the minds of how they look at things. And not every time it happens, you roll your eyes, right? How does this person think? Well, that's just normal. And so putting yourself or putting the lens of the others on, we know there are cultural differences, done. But shifting your paradigm and shifting the way you think so you're not always rolling your eyes every time you look at something, that's really tricky. Some examples, coffee money's everywhere. Coffee money, we know what that is, right? Gets things done more quickly, the fire inspection happens more quickly, the documents are processed more quickly. Every one of you has probably flown into the airport here. You saw how long the lines are at the airport. Coffee money gets you into the short line, right? All these types of things, but that's just the way it is, right? So it's not worth rolling your eyes and saying, oh my God, it's crazy, but it's just the way it is, right? A lesson from my 5-year-old. These outfits are what are worn all over the place here, just casually shopping, whatever. Matching, very light, sort of top and bottom there, right? What did my little girl say when she saw that once? Exactly. Did they forget to take off their pajamas, right? So it shows how young this starts, this lens, right, of thinking in a certain way. So it's almost impossible still for me to ride by someone in that outfit and not think they've got their pajamas on. Of course, none of the locals think that way, right? So shifting your lens, shifting the paradigm, very, 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 very challenging. The last one I like, when buying helmets for staff, an employee suggested ones that don't cover the ears for easier phone chats while riding. Okay, as a German or an American, you're going, well, you shouldn't be doing that. Well, here, well, what's the big deal? Actually, they just recently changed the law. It's much more strict now. But 5 years ago, everyone, right? So that changing your cultural lens is a big, big thing. Navigating regulations and bureaucracy. This is the same type of thing. I'm not talking about regulations and bureaucracy. I'd actually argue that in Germany you have more regulations and bureaucracy, or Singapore, than you do here, right? And in the States, same. But in those places, you know whom to talk to. You know which government department, you know who's in charge, the rules are published, it's clear. It might take a long time, whatever, but you know where to go. I'm talking about the navigating part, right? Finding the right person in this labyrinth. Who's in charge? Which department? It was this guy last year and there's this guy this year. They don't want to be found. It's new rules. So the navigation part is the challenging part, right? The power of partnership. Tantan is our secret weapon, right? They're the ones who are landlords or our partners. They've been around for 30 years. They have tons of senior contacts. They take care of things for us when people from the ward or district come by to inspect. They know whom to talk to. So having that type of contact is invaluable, invaluable. And then this is sort of comes back to that first incident I told you about where we had to move out, right? Be particularly selective when building your initial team. The first few hires are absolutely critical, right? These individuals will be of critical importance as you, with little experience in Vietnam, build the company in the initial months. They're much more important than the ones in 4 or 5 years, right? Because they're going to accompany you in the early days. If I had had these guys, I wouldn't have made that mistake in the beginning that cost $25K or something like that. Challenge 4, Western standards. Eye for detail isn't here yet. It just isn't. It usually needs to be taught. It still hasn't sunk in with my team after 5 years, right? Just some examples. This was a supply closet. I opened it up, I nearly passed out. It doesn't look as bad in the photo, but it's just like everything was thrown in, right? This is the toilet thing. See the rust on it, right? This is walking around my facility. This is what our office door looked like, needed to be repainted. Big box just sitting there. These are some planters we have with the dirt on them, right? That attention is really, really challenging to teach, exceedingly challenging. When you go to a big Western hotel chain here, 9 times out of 10, they have a Western manager. Because it's changing, it's definitely changing, but that sensibility is really, really challenging to get into people, even after years and years and years and years of talking about it. They're moving in the right direction, but when I talk about challenges here, that's one of them. And especially when you have a physical location, right? Like a self-storage facility or a hotel or something like that, it becomes even more challenging. But if you get it right, it's an amazing advantage. That's what I want to talk about here. We didn't emphasize that we're Western run or managed. We didn't want to come across as arrogant or superior, right? But following lots of feedback, everyone said, you're wasting an asset. Get that out there. So now at all of our collateral on our website, everywhere you see a German and American flag and say Western management, because that is highly, highly sought after here. You know, made in Japan, made in Germany, things like that. So I said, okay, let's leverage it, and it's harder to copy. The last one, advertising a new service. Creating demand is key. The need is here. They just don't know about us yet, right? We want to create that demand. Awareness is our biggest challenge. It was 5 years ago, it is today, it'll be like that in 5 years. The 4 Ds of self-storage, you've probably never heard of these. Death, divorce, dislocation, which is like moving and downsizing. That applies everywhere, right? Those things happen everywhere. But the details differ, right? You might store a rice cooker or a water dispenser versus a microwave. We focus on reach and display ads to show problems and solutions. Less search, because the search volume is lower, right? You have to educate people. PR, content marketing initiatives. Here we're at a school. We set up a maze so you can talk to the parents as they come by. Christmas donation week at MyStorage, things like that. So really being active with the community, educating, teaching, getting involved. We have partners, we call them trigger partners, biz dev partners. So people who refer customers to us who will need storage, right? Real estate agents, they work with people who are moving, co-working space. They have people at desks that have inventory somewhere. Construction companies, they're working with people who are renovating their homes and need to put their stuff somewhere. So we're very, very focused on this biz dev type of relationship. And competition is our friend, right? Surprisingly, they've helped us sharpen our game, but they've also helped us educate, right? So any big city, Bangkok, wherever you go, you have lots of operators. So it's actually helped us grow the business. I'm going to show you a spot here real quickly just to give you an example of how we're trying to educate the marketplace.
Tại thành phố Hồ Chí Minh, lãnh đạo ủy ban nhân dân thành phố lo ngại đề án 5 huyện 10 quận sẽ đẩy giá đất.
Quận 2 lên giá, 100 mét là hết ga. Giá thì chất mà đam mê thì nhiều. Đã có MyStorage. Dịch vụ lưu trữ đồ linh hoạt giá chỉ từ 495.000 đồng một tháng để bạn luôn được sống trọn với đam mê của mình.
So basically, yeah, I've always been a big Shark Tank fan. Shark Tank USA. I love the show. Always watched it and everything. And I was sitting at home one night, and they called me. It's like, hey, would you like to be on Shark Tank? At first I didn't understand. It was like, who? Yeah, this is Shark Tank Vietnam. Shark? Of course, right? I'm not going to turn that down. So I went out there. It's a big, dirty warehouse way outside of town, and they had the sort of the set up all in the middle of it. And, you know, it was really just crazy, chaotic, changing things 1,000 times, moving the set around, trying to get adjusted, and at the same time, practicing a Vietnamese sort of spiel to stand up there in front of the camera and speak Vietnamese. I have sort of a bit of a staccato rhythm to it because I had memorized it, and I was sweating bullets and nervous as hell and all the lights. What they actually did is they gave me a headphone so that I could, or an earpiece, so that I could have a simultaneous translation of them speaking Vietnamese, right? So I would speak English, they had a headphone, they could hear me in Vietnamese, and vice versa. So that's sort of how that went. So now I'll show you the video real quickly. It's going to be too loud, probably, just preparing you. So let's see. Xin chào sharks, my name is Aric Austin from MyStorage. So right here we have a beautiful apartment in Saigon, but the problem is there's so much stuff, so much clutter, so many things, but you don't want to throw them away. You've got your books your grandmother gave you, the golf clubs, you only use them every few months. You've got your children's toys, you've got winter clothes and winter shoes. Xin chào các nhà đầu tư. Tôi tên là Aric Austin. Tôi là nhà sáng lập của MyStorage. Có lưu trú khả năng trong gói đầu tiên của Việt Nam. Chỉ cần một điện thoại lên cho chúng tôi biết bạn muốn lưu trú gì, khi nào chúng tôi đến lấy hàng. Đội ngũ nhân viên tuyệt vời của chúng tôi đến đồng hành vào tuần nữa và nhanh chóng mang đồ của bạn đến nhà kho. So that is, you've got a deal. It's a real pleasure.
Muốn bất động sản rồi giờ. Good luck, Eric. Good luck.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Go
Bye-bye.
corporate. Go corporate.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Linh đã ngắm chàng trai Hưng rồi.
Làm trước rồi.
Amazing, amazing. So there you go. That was. Thank you, thank you. It's actually it's really interesting because Shark Tank, if you watch it in the States and then you want to watch, I don't know, an episode from 5 years ago, you have to go iTunes pay for it or whatever. It's hard to get, right? Here they have a very different approach. This is just, sorry, my media hat on. I thought it was very interesting. Is they immediately put it on YouTube. So you can go back and watch old episodes of Shark Tank on YouTube. So they have a very different mentality in the States, at least, and in Germany probably too. They immediately wall it off and make you pay for it. And here it's like, let's get it out to everyone. Let's get that distribution out there. Let's put it on YouTube and bang, everyone can watch it at any time. So I thought that was sort of an interesting approach to getting the message out. It's good for me. Absolutely. It's good for me because a lot more people see it. Absolutely right.
What's the deal?
So basically, I went in. I had heard before I went in that most of the deals they don't come through. It's just for show. Blah 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 blah. And at first I was like, okay, let's see. I did go in with a lower valuation to make it more to get a deal, right? And I thought to myself, okay, if it's really an amazing investor and he makes it huge, then it's worth it. So you're asking what the terms of the deal were. So he offered, was it $450, which is about let's say $200 for a quarter of the company, something like that. Yeah, $200,000 for a quarter. Yeah. In the end, there were 3 sharks that made the offer, and the one shark where I had made the deal, in the end, I turned it down because he just didn't seem excited about the business when we met. Afterwards, after the show. So we shook hands on the show. Then a month later, you have the call and do all that stuff, and then it wasn't a fit, right? But from a PR standpoint, let me see if I can go on and boom. Nope. Let's go back. It's being silly. Let me just go to the. Should I just hit the arrow, or can I hit the arrow down? Yeah. So anyway, I talked about that. Boop. Nope. Nope. How do I go one down? I have to click on that each time? Hey. Okay. It's almost over. Anyway, so I talked about that, right? So it was a little bit chaotic. The last night, they called me, Aric, your shirt with dots isn't good. Wear this shirt, all that type of thing. Just, whoop. Yeah. Pitching in Vietnamese was tough. I memorized, and then I was standing up there. I was like, I hope I just don't freeze. I managed to get through it. Yeah, was it for the money, the fame, the memes? Really, it was for the PR value, right? Getting out there. There was a lot of press. We got a lot of people saying, hey, we want to talk to you. One very small investor came in. To this day, oh, you were on Shark Tank or stuff like that. So that's really invaluable. And from an experience standpoint, absolutely fabulous. So was it worth it? Of course, right? It was worth the attention MyStorage received. It's extremely popular here. So it was all around a really, really fabulous experience. So I would certainly do that again. My top 3 learnings. The first 2 could be applied to any startup anywhere. But I just want to emphasize that they're doubled here, right? It's really just, you magnify this. Constant adaptation. If you don't evolve, you die. So what might work in the West doesn't work here. You have to adapt. You have to adapt even more. I mean, like I say, they say that about any startup anywhere. But when you're not in your home country, you might go this direction, you might go that direction, and so on. So you take the constant adaptation, and you have to do it much more quickly, and you're going to hit things that you didn't expect, and so on. So really very, very important, as well as the keep going, right? You're going to run into lots of things that knock you back. Again, nothing new for a startup, an entrepreneur, but when you do it in a new country, it's really double. And I can't even describe how many surprises you're going to get that you just didn't expect. The next one is more, so let's say Vietnam, we're focused on a new country, and that's building a sustainable business rather than trying for a quick win. Trust, the relationships that are important here, the brand, that takes more time. So don't plan on coming here to Vietnam or going somewhere and an exit in 5 years. It's very unlikely, right? To me, it's a 10-year thing at least, right? We're halfway there, it's going well, but don't make it short term. And the other thing that I want to talk about, it's not on here, and I think it's really important, is when you take an idea from the West and bring it here, it actually gives you the opportunity to leapfrog and be innovative and new and do things that they don't do in the West. For example, you can book our storage facility online. Most facilities in the West, you can't do that. Coming back to the AI thing, we're developing, we're close to bringing it out, is a tool where you can upload photographs of your stuff. It'll analyze the picture and it'll say, you've got about 3.7 cubic meters that you need to store. That's probably the most difficult question we have to answer all the time. Oh, how many cubic meters do I need? It's really, really difficult. People have no idea what a cubic meter even is, right? So leveraging AI to do that is really cool. We use QR codes to track everything, where it is on the shelf, Most places in the West don't do that. So taking an idea and being able to leapfrog and sort of start from scratch and do things that they're not doing yet is something really, really cool, and what I've learned that I hadn't really thought about in the past. And then we are just about done. There we go. Yeah, just do it. Oops, and then it skips again. Let's try to, there we go. 2 thoughts. What's the worst that'll happen? These are just 2 little things I remember very well. An ex-coworker had an opportunity to work in Singapore, worked with me in Germany, Andy. Oh, I got this job offer. I want to talk to you about it, blah, 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 blah. Well, take it. It's a great job offer, Singapore, blah, blah. Yeah, I can't. I just had a kid. What? They have kids there. They have schools there, and so on, right? So coming up with these excuses that aren't really legitimate excuses, right? Okay, maybe there's something else, but having a kid, that's not an excuse, right? The guy thinking about moving to Berlin, I remember very well the conversation with him. Aric, I've got a job offer in Berlin. It's so exciting. But what if it doesn't work out? Then it doesn't work out. Then you go back home, right? Then you do something else, whatever. But what I'm trying to emphasize here is these mental blocks, these excuses that you make in your head to keep you from doing things more than anything else, right? You see that over and over and over again. And here, embrace the unknown. One last anecdote for you. When I left working for MTV, I'll never forget, I was going to take my motorcycle ride it around Europe and Northern Africa. A guy sat next to me, his name was Chris, and he looked at me, he goes, God, Aric, I can't imagine leaving my job and not knowing what job I'm going to. Well, that'll block you right away, right? That'll block you immediately. So those types of things, what's the worst that'll happen? Not knowing what will happen, those are all up here, right? All up here. So I can only encourage you to get rid of those thoughts if you're considering it. And I think, now I'll try one more here. Da-da-da. There we go. Any questions? Any questions?
It's him about 3 questions.
Yeah, sure.
So for how long would a normal customer rent the storage?
Our average tenure is about a year now. 1 year. So it's been climbing since we started, and about 1 year. It's just 11 point something months. Yeah.
They get right that you only have locations here in Ho Chi Minh?
Right now we're only in Ho Chi Minh. Our plan is to expand across Ho Chi Minh, sort of like a circle around, and then maybe one downtown, then the rest of Vietnam, and then maybe places like Cambodia. Yes, sir.
How does the new customer onboarding look like? I noticed you have an app.
The onboarding. So the onboarding for our hyperlocal is actually more advanced than our facility. So when we open our new facilities, what we want to do is we really want to have it all remote, right? So you can write us or call us or whatever, and then you send us the information, you send us a copy of your ID, you can sign the contract remotely, we give you access remotely, and then you go in and you can put the lock on and you're done, right? So we're very close to, we already have that at the hyperlocal place, and we want to roll that out at all the things. That's what makes this business attractive in many ways, right? You build new facilities, you don't need a bunch of staff there, just a building. Yes.
So my question is, so I think Arabs in Asia are the same mindset, so we store everything at home.
Yeah.
I would like to know, was it a need in Asia that they needed storage areas, or you just somehow convinced them to store stuff in?
It's a need that exists, but people don't know our solution. By the way, where in Middle East are you from?
Egypt.
In Egypt, okay. Because a guy, his name is Wadi, he's in UAE, and he's got a company called The Box. And I mean, it's just as big as this building. It's just crazy how big it is, right? Crazy how big. So it really is this universal need where people use crappy solutions. Like one guy, I wish I had known about you. I was renovating my house last time I rented a hotel room, you know, or I put stuff in the basement of my friends. I mean, the cases of people putting stuff in basements of friends, and then we have to pick it up and it's moldy, it's crappy, it's dirty, right? So they're just, every use case under the sun is, businesses go out of business, they've got kitchen equipment, they've got big massage chairs, they've got all this expensive stuff that has to go somewhere. You have baby furniture, your next child's not going to be due for a couple of years, you've got winter clothing. You go to any of these apartment buildings here, 90% of them are using one extra room for junk. Stuff. Not kidding. Stuff, right? And so that is our biggest challenge, is trying to get to these people, say, you don't need a bigger apartment. Take the stuff out of that room, save money, you got an extra room, you don't need a bigger apartment, just do it that way. So penetrating and getting people to think that that's an option, that's the challenge. Yeah.
How did you manage the rating for the rooms? Because, you know, when people are moving, they think about saving some money. So it's always about a few dollars between...
How did we manage the writing? What do you mean the writing? Sorry.
The rating, sorry. I mean...
you mean the pricing?
Yes, given the price.
Okay.
So you give them a price?
Sure. It's by cubic meter.
Sorry?
We charge by cubic meter.
Yes, I mean you have this price.
Yes.
So when I want myself,
Yeah.
I want to move.
Yeah.
So when I'm moving, I'm planning to save cost as much as I can.
Yes.
So now you give me a price. I don't know how do you...
You mean for the price for the storage if you're moving, or the price to move?
For the storage. So I want to move my stuff on your storage.
So you want to know how we price things to be competitive, to make it attractive and things like that. What we do is, there are lots of cases like that. One of the easiest ones is, I have an office in the central business district. I'm using a corner of this office for documents, for marketing material, for inventory, whatever. What's more expensive? this central business district square meters that I'm using in this building, for example, or the equivalent number of square meters at our facility. I can save you money right away. If you're out of the country, would you like to stay in your apartment and pay $2,000 a month for the next 3 or 4 months? You're probably going to come back and move into a different apartment. Give it to us. So usually we can make a pretty powerful argument that we're going to save people money rather than their current solution. And then the other one is, of course, a lifestyle thing. And we want to get a lot more people who just realize my life is better if I don't have clutter all over the place, right? And we can also make that argument, like I say, if someone's thinking about moving to a bigger apartment, you don't need to. Just empty that room of junk, right? So there are a lot of ways you can approach that. Yeah? Cool. I think that's it. Thank you. Let me, if you, there, boom, yeah. So, if you want to get in touch, you have any questions, whatever, anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the inspiring and
Thank you.
walking session.
Thank you, thank you. All right, all kinds of goodies. That's Lars, I know Lars.
You all